So to celebrate the release of the new Wonder Woman film starring Gal Gadot that is to be released, well, tomorrow, so pretty soon, I thought I'd go back and revisit the DC animated original film from 2009, which starred Keri Russell doing the voice to the animated version of Wonder Woman. This is still, I think, my favourite of the DC animated original movies. Now, obviously I'm a big Batman fan, there's quite a few Batman films amongst that lot, but even compared to them, I enjoy this a lot more. I don't compare that to Batman Mask of the Phantasm or Batman Return of the Joker, because they're not part of this line of films. I still think they're the best that they've put out so far. Warner Brothers, that is. But of the DC animated originals line, this is still my favourite film. I've talked about it quite a few times on my channel in various videos I've already done, but they've always been videos in which I'm talking about many other films. So I just wanted to review this one specifically and tell you why I think it's so great, and why, if you haven't seen it already, I urge you to go and check it out. First of all, Lauren Montgomery does a fantastic job in the director's chair. Once again, as with the new live action film, they've got a woman to direct it, and I think it was a cracking choice. Not just because she can relate to a female central figure, obviously, but beyond that, she really knows how to handle action, and this film is full of action beats, but never at the expense of character moments, character development. Even the opening action sequence, we start in the middle, in the thick of this battle, this huge battle. But the whole thing sets up all of our main characters from Themyscira. You know, these characters aren't just little side characters that never come back again. Each one is woven into the story and has something to say about women, about people in general, or just like about courage or cowardice or strength versus intellect. You know, so all these characters are woven in right from the start, and the action often helps to develop them, which is always going to be the best kind of action you get in any movie. The voice cast is absolutely brilliant. Keri Russell I've already mentioned, but Nathan Fillion, I mean, the two of them worked together previously on Waitress, which is actually another pretty decent film, an indie film. But yeah, they have great chemistry together, even though it's just their voices, you know, you don't actually see them on screen. Well, Alfred Molina as Ares does a fantastic job. He really gets the malevolence of this character down to a T. But then you got Virginia Madsen, Rosario Dawson, Oliver Platt cameos in this. He plays a brilliant Hades, and I love the look as well, the design they've got of Hades. They don't really go for the more, I guess, the Disney route of making him this muscular kind of guy. He's just this big blob. He kind of reminds me of the monstrosity that we saw in Blade. If you've ever seen the live action version of Blade, there's a character in that is just this big fat blob kind of glued to a chair. It kind of reminded me of that. But yeah, the designs throughout this actually are really good, and they all come from Montgomery, Lauren Montgomery, the director. She was brought into this role by Bruce Timm, who kind of picked her up from a previous film she'd done some storyboards on, and so he said, you know what, how would you like to do a whole movie? He kind of put her in the thick of things, but she does a fantastic job with the character designs. There's a lot of female characters in this, and she does quite a lot with them to make them distinguishable from each other. You know, they all look very beautiful, they all have very similar figures. So how do you make them look different? How do you differentiate? Well, she does. She manages to do it absolutely beautifully with her character designs. The movement of the animation is really fluid as well, something that some of the later DC animated originals kind of suffer from, in they don't really have that. Some of the ones that Sam Liu directs, and the other guy whose name escapes my memory at the moment, there are times when the action in them looks a little bit stilted, whereas here it's always very fluid. I like the central relationship between Diana and Steve Trevor. You know, he's this kind of lovable rogue. There's things he says and does that kind of make him out to be a bit of a typical male pig. Which, you know, is going to be something you can't really escape when you're doing a Wonder Woman movie, because you have to talk about the battle of the sexes, the difference between the sexes, men versus women and that kind of thing. But they never go so far as to paint all men or tar all men with the same brush. So while Steve Trevor does have these rather roguish sides, these sides that maybe aren't the best side of mankind, he also has the more heroic side. He has the chivalrous side. You know, he's kind of like a little bit the best of both, really. So yeah, I like the fact that they have these really well-rounded characters, and like I say, I like the central relationship between Trevor and Diana. I like that she comes into this world a really strong woman, a kind of battle type woman. You know, she's all for getting a sleeve rolled up and jumping into battle, but she doesn't quite understand how the modern world works. So yeah, it's interesting to see how Trevor kind of tries to take her through that, but really with his own agenda as well. Though they do, you know, they warm to each other, and I liked the relationship. I like how it develops. It felt natural enough to me. The pacing of the film is absolutely brilliant. We go to quite a few different locations and different time periods and whatnot, and it just never seems to get stilted. There's never a section in the film where I'm kind of checking my watch and thinking, oh, I wish we'd move on now. So yeah, really great stuff. Some good kind of spooky moments as well, I guess. Some violent moments. You know, this is a scene. This is a film with a lot of kind of big battle sequences. We see heads lopped off. We see swords going through bodies. So they don't shy away from that, which is quite, yeah, it's quite refreshing from this kind of movie, I guess. It's not, you know, it's not absolutely perfect. If you are looking for flaws, you can find them. But I think that's true of any film. I don't think any film's perfect. It doesn't exist. If you look hard enough, you can find faults. There are a couple of times in this where some of the designs are a little off. Not necessarily how they look, but how they're treated. So, like with the big battle sequence towards the end, when all these kind of zombies come up and start fighting for Ares, they're all these really pasty-faced corpses. Their skin's like really pasty white, and then this one character, this female, this Themysciran woman, she gets killed, and instantly she turns pasty white, and then looks like all these other zombies. Like, you're a fresh corpse, you know. And that wouldn't be so bad, but then moments later we get one of the other characters from previously in the film is resurrected as one of these zombies, and yet her skin doesn't look all pasty white. She looks kind of quite normal, almost like the blood is still running through her veins. So it's little design things like that where you're kind of thinking, actually, pay a bit more attention to that. The only other criticism I would have of it as well is that sometimes Diana's powers, Wonder Woman's powers, aren't quite, it's hard to discern just exactly what they are, because she has a fight scene with Trevor when they first meet each other, and she really knocks him on his ass. She uppercuts the guy, and I'm kind of thinking in that moment, his head should be ripped off by now. You know, the power that Wonder Woman has. And I guess you could argue, I mean, Superman does this all the time in the comic books and whatnot. You could argue that she is controlling her power. She's holding back, so to speak. You know, she could rip this guy's head off, but she chooses not to. But given that she never met a man, never met humankind, I guess she could have been told. You know, she'd have been educated as to the restraint she would have to show. So, like I say, it is a criticism, but it's not. If you don't want it to be, if you think about it, you know, there is reasoning behind that. Beyond that, yeah, I really love this movie. It's a kick-ass action film with a really strong, really great female central figure. So wonderful film for you to show any young daughters you might have out there. yeah, and it gives women a really good character to look up to. It gives men a good character to look up to, I think. So, yeah, you know, without wanting to get too far into the sexual politics of things, but there you go. I love this film. You know, I throw it on from time to time. I keep on thinking that it's not going to hold up as well as I remember it, but each time I put this on, it always does. You know, it always excels past what I've remembered. I think it's really great piece of cinema, straight to DVD cinema, if you can call it that. Anyway, 5 out of 5 from me. You know, take that rating with a pinch of salt. I'm not comparing this with the likes of, you know, something you might get by Christopher Nolan or whatever. I'm comparing it for what it is, which is a straight to DVD movie. It doesn't have the kind of budget that something like a big Disney film or a DreamWorks animation might have. So given what they've got to work with, they deliver a 5-star movie for my money. Anyway, if you've seen this film, please do comment below and let me know what you thought about it. Until next time, crack it.